Hi, I'm Dawn Wink, and I'm going to share some ideas, some things that I wish more people knew about women in leadership. And this is through the context of our class, Cultivating Conscious Leadership in Women, taught by Dr. Olga Aurora. One of the primary things that I wish people knew more about women in leadership is that we come from a very contextualized space. Historically, my understanding, I think it was very much the case that when men were primarily in power in leadership positions, they could go to their work, or their kingdom or wherever they had, and pretty much leave everything else at home and focus on leadership. And that's not the case with women, at least not with any women that I know. And so I'm going to be sharing my leadership journey through the context of this class, with readings, conversations, with our colleagues and peers, and a lot of experiences. And one of the reasons that I wanted to share this image and some more images is because a lot of these ideas and a lot of my own leadership journey, it took an unexpected curve, we got a turn this earlier in this semester, and a lot of these ideas I experienced from my parents' ranch in South Dakota. And how this ties integrally to my own leadership experience is because my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer and needed to go receive treatment in Tucson. And so I went to the ranch to take care of the ranch while he and my mom were in Tucson and he was receiving treatment. And suddenly my leadership role in the family shifted, and I really experienced our readings then through multiple lenses: professional, personal, and family. So I'm gonna switch over. So one of the primary quotes that really spoke to me from our readings was this by Terry Tempest Williams, and I'll go ahead and read it. "We can no longer deny the destiny that is ours, individually, collectively, as women who wait, waiting to love, waiting to speak, waiting to act. In our withholding of power, we abrogate our power, and that creates war." So this whole idea of waiting to speak, waiting to act, waiting to love really spoke to me for the multiple chapters in my own life, and comes at a time where I was really ready to let that land and to absorb what that meant. And so when I headed to the ranch, 15 hours, I threw everything in my car, my puppy, 15 hours it takes to drive from Santa Fe to Howes, South Dakota, where they ranch. If you stop at Barnes & Noble's and allow yourself one latte and a few books and a brand new journal. But what amazed me was when I arrived at the ranch 15 hours later, this is the sign right outside our ranch, and this is exactly the moment that I arrived, right when the sun was in between the sign and the horizon. And the first morning that I woke up, there was a bald eagle right outside the window. And this is my dad. And so he was showing me, I was getting my chore list essentially. This is when we were driving around the ranch. And he was telling me what I needed to do, what I needed to take care of. I had a journal and I was writing down my ideas in that journal. Not my ideas, I was trying to keep track of everything he was saying. I drew maps of where the wells were, maps of the pastures. And so this is when I was really receiving a new leadership role in our family and on the ranch. And what this is reflective of to me is this idea from our readings: women pay attention to our settings and surroundings, and we also value connecting with other people and nurturing those relationships. In addition to this heightened relational context, we have a heightened temporal context, as we tend to think beyond our lifespans and beyond ourselves. So in leadership roles, one of the things that I wish more people understood about women in leadership is that we don't leave these contexts and these settings behind when we walk into whatever leadership role we're about ready to go into. So I don't stop being a daughter, I don't stop being a mother. These are my parents. This is when they were about ready to get on the plane to head to Tucson for my dad to receive his treatment. This is this year's Christmas card. This is my husband and my kids. And one of the things that I wish more people knew about women in leadership is this doesn't end when we walk into those leadership roles. Suddenly, those responsibilities do not go away. This is the first morning on the ranch, and I'm just going to slide through some of the visions, some of the things that I woke up to on that morning, to give you a sense of place and what this means for leadership. And what this is reflective of to me are Sandberg's ideas that careers are jungle gyms, not ladders. When I read that in Lean In, that so vividly reflects my own experience. This idea that careers are hierarchical and that you start on the bottom rung and you climb up the ladder, I think maybe that works for men. If you have someone at home taking care of everything that needs to be taken care of at home, but it definitely is not reflective of, at least in my experience, my career, my leadership journey. I took several years off having kids and staying home with those kids because I couldn't imagine them with anybody other than me, or me with anybody other than them. I was very blessed and fortunate that I was able to do that. I knew that it would affect my career, but frankly, at that moment in time, all I cared about was being with my kids, them with me with them during those really important foundational years. And it did come to, in certain contexts, be used against me. I wouldn't change that decision for anything. And so when I read this by Sandberg, I thought, that is it. It's up, it's down, it's lateral, it's around. It's not just you start at one job and you continue to go up. So some images that reflect that. Oh, and this is because I threw all my books into the car because, of course, all of my coursework and all of my work on campus didn't end when I went to the ranch. And so this is the table where I set up and I was working on my coursework. This is all my binders and my books that I brought. And meanwhile, when I wasn't deep into transdisciplinarity and women in leadership and ecology of ideas and narrative inquiry, I was out checking the cows with my dog, or checking the wells, or making sure that there was enough salt block out, or making sure that in our washout where cattle trucks wash these huge cattle trucks, that the manure hadn't clogged the drains. And so I was telling this to my son, and he said, Mom, and here's Luke right here at the University of Arizona. You've heard about Luke in our class. He said, Mom, that sounds just like your program. Because I said, it's this wild, I'm in this world and I'm in that world, and these divergent worlds. And somehow in my life, they all align beautifully. And so I just thought that was perfect. Mom, that sounds just like your program. And so I really felt that this fall, as we were exploring these ideas, I was not only reading about them abstractly, but I was living them, both as a professional woman, as a personal woman, and as a family woman. One of the ideas that really resonated with me that I wish more people understood about women in leadership is the role of solitude and spirituality. So spirituality's highest purpose is to touch a mystery beyond words, which is perceived only in silence and solitude. The grandmothers say, listening within the silence puts one in touch with the energy, vibration, and spiritual forces that are at the heart of creation. And while I was on the ranch, I really got to experience this in this place. This is the North Pasture, otherwise known as my running route on the ranch. And so I had a lot of, I've written in this class about how integral running is in my life, and very much so in my leadership journey, because that's where I work things through. I dream, I plan, I lift up. And so those ideas from the grandmothers resonated deeply when I read them. And this is something that threads all of my leadership roles to create beauty in the world. It's what I hope to do in parenting, and writing, and teaching, as a friend, as a family member. And when I winnow away everything else, that's what's there. So I wanted to share a few images of beauty. because one thing I wish more people knew about women in leadership is how I think women have been encouraged to give this up, to be more in alignment with kind of a male perspective of the professional and the personal, and those as separate, and those are not separate. So this is Prairie Edge in Rapid City, South Dakota, and some visions of beauty, just because I love it. And looping back around to women who wait. I had an experience driving home from the ranch that I wanted to share. This is an abandoned, I was riding home from town to the ranch. This is an abandoned homestead. I've driven by this, I don't even know how many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I've always found it very evocative, and I always wanted to go into it, and I never did. So today I did, or when I was there, I did. And what I thought of was, at some point in time, a woman lived here for years and years. And this was, I don't know if it's the kitchen or the living room, it's hard to tell in the old houses, but you know, it's now filled with dirt and the elements have come in. And what was once the second story, the sunlight now streams down through the roof. So what I would encourage all of us to do is to, like, one thing, when I read that Terry Tempest Williams, I don't want to wait anymore. I've waited a long time through many chapters of my kids. I've waited, I've withheld my voice in context for many different reasons, and I don't want to be a woman who waits anymore. And if there was one thing I wish more people knew about women in leadership, it's on the front of this journal. It says she's a wildflower that won't be cut down. Thank you very much.